Today we are going to see how simple it is to connect a USB-485 to a KT400, and by the same token try to establish communication with the Entrepreneur Special Edition. So very important, when you make the connection, you have to make sure the X minus of the USB-485 goes to the X minus of the controller KT400, or X minus also, and the X positive, it goes to the controller on COM1 45 X positive, and the ground, it goes to the controller on the auxiliary 12 volts ground. So that's the first thing, to make the connection to the KT400. Then the second part will be to install the driver for the KT400, for the USB-485. So once we got that, first thing we need to do, you see if Windows is going to detect the USB-485. So once we get the USB-485 connected to the computer, so the next thing we need to do, we can go under My Computer, Properties, and then from that, Device Manager. Under Device Manager, under Other Devices, you will see Kentech USB-485 serial converter that hasn't been installed yet. So we're going to select the proper driver for it. So now first thing you need to do, right click on it and select Properties, and then Update Driver. Once you select Update Driver, you're going to click Browse My Computer for driver software, and then from that I'm going to browse where the driver is located. So in My Computer, I'm going to go to my D drive. On my D drive, what I did, I put the installation package of the Special Edition. And within the installation package, I'm going to go to the driver folder. In the driver folder, I found USB-485. I can use for the 32-bit application or 64-bit application, since I'm using Windows 7 64-bit. So I'm going to select that and then click OK. And then from that, adjust Next. And then we're just waiting, for the driver to be installed. And then the driver has been successfully updated and the driver is installed. So now if I go again, I have to do it again. Update my driver software again, and then from that, browse to the same location. And now my driver has been installed. And then if I look, so now on the ports COM and LPT, I see the USB serial port is using COM3. So COM3, that will be the COM device I have to select in my software when I want to establish communication with the system. So the next thing, once the driver has been installed and we're not using COM3, so we're going to go to Entrepreneur Special Edition. We're going to log in. So to log in, we're going to use Kentech. Oh, sorry. Kentech. So once I log in, so the next thing I need to do is to go to the device menu. When defining the system, I always starts from left to right. So first thing we need to do, we need to define our site. So the site is going to be KT400 or any name you choose. And then under the General tab, number of controllers, I have only one controller, and the connection tab, I'm using direct RS-232 or USB. So now if I go to my RS-232 tab, I will select my COM3 and then save. And then once the configuration is saved, once the configuration, then I'm going to go to Devices Controller and then select my device, define my another controller. So I can still label my controller here again. I can label it as KT400 number 1. And under controller type, very important to select the right controller type. So I'm going to select KT400. And then next thing, I'm going to go to my serial number. Serial number, it's listed on the board itself under SN. Okay, so now my serial number is entered, and then EOL resistor type. So For my situation, I'm not using any resistor type, so that's why I'm going to leave it to none. If I was using a resistor to supervise all my inputs, in this case, I would select single or double, depending, like, you know, what I'm doing. So in our case here, I'm going to select none. So leave it as is, and then from that, I'm going to save my controller. By saving my controller, it's going to ask me if I want to do the express setup. Yes, I'm going to do an express setup. And what do I have defined at the moment? I have a door contact and a Rex. And then I'm going to click on Advanced. Advanced, it gives me the opportunity to define all my components at the same time. If I want to define my relays, I can define my relays right now. I can define my other doors. And for the other doors, I can say my type of door. Is it an access door? Is it an entry door? Or is it an exit door? What type of lock am I using? Is it a fail secure? Or is it a fail safe device? And I can set if I'm using a door contact or a Rex also on that door. For the purpose of the demonstration, we're only going to use one door that we define. And we also define the door contact. So I'm going to set the properties of my door contact. I'm going to set it to open, since it's an open contact that I have at the moment. And same thing for the Rex. They're all open contacts. So now I'm going to save. So click on OK. And then once I click OK, so my controller is defined. So the next thing I need to do now, I need to go on the operation and site to check the status of my controller. Oh, the status, I just got communication. Site communication is OK. And if I do a status, site communication is OK also. So that is very good. That tells me I'm communicating with my controller. So once I'm communicating with the controller, I can go under devices. Sorry, I can go under operation controller. And then from that, I'm going to see my controller. The reason I'm getting that little hammer is because I have a tempering alarm. Because the cabinet door of my controller is open at the moment. So that's why I'm getting tempering alarm. And while you're in that section, you can do a status. It will give you a full status of the controller. So those are different status that will help you when it's time to troubleshoot your system. So what we can see, we can tell us the communication is okay with the controller. We can tell us the serial number of our controller. It can tell us our jumpers are present on the controller, and also the firmware version of the controller. And once we get that, we can close that window. And then if we go to devices and operation door, it will give you the status of my door at the moment. So it shows me my door is closed. I can do a right click on it also. For the full status, it will give me door lock. My door is locked, and the status and the door is closed also. So the next thing, once all that is defined, I can go to my desktop. So my desktop, it gives me when communication was restored, my loop communication is restored, and also everything is communicating with the controller. So now the next thing that I need to do, that will be to define a card. So by defining a card, I can just swipe the card on the controller. So I get my message access denied card unknown, because the card is not entered in the system, it's not in the database yet, but the driver is able to detect the card and read the card number. And very important to make sure that the number that is showing on the details for the card number match what you have on your card. So once we get that figured out, we can do a right click on the message, edit card, and once we select edit card, we're going to give it a name. And then from that, we're going to assign an access level to the card. By default, it's going to be always valid. It's always defined. So once we get that, and then we're going to save. So the next thing we need to do, swiping the card at the door, we get access granted, meaning the card is working fine. So now we have access to the door. And if I was using a Rex, remember I defining the Rex in the beginning. So when I press on my Rex input, I get a request to exit. So which means I can go through the door. Now it's a free access. And this is how simple it is to set a USB-485 with a KT400 and Entrepreneur Special Edition in a couple of steps.